All right, let's get straight into it. Today, we're not just looking at some old story. We're treating it like a strategic white paper, deconstructing the exact methods a master predator uses to engineer the total takeover of a human soul. This is a deep dive into the architecture of a fall.
So right off the bat, you've got to reframe how you see this whole thing. This isn't a fairy tale with magical villains. Nope. What we're examining is a clinical, almost repeatable case study in some seriously sophisticated psychological manipulation. It's a blueprint. And this is the core framework for our entire analysis today. We're breaking this case down into 3 distinct parts. First, we have the man. That's the target's psychological profile. Then, we'll look at the lure, the custom-built bait used to hook him. And finally, we'll examine the cage, the transactional trap that seals his fate for good. Okay, so let's start with the target. You see, a truly successful predator doesn't just invent a weakness out of thin air. No, they are masters at identifying and then exploiting the vulnerabilities that are already there. The entire strategy, everything that follows, hinges on getting this first step right.
And this guy, he is what you would call a perfect mark. The sources we're looking at say he fits something called the Rasputin blueprint. He's a brilliant scholar, sure, but his inner world is basically a war zone, a man totally torn apart by these powerful conflicting forces, just waiting for something to tip the scales.
So here's a look at that internal conflict, that civil war happening inside his head. On one side, you've got this immense intellectual pride, this burning ambition to know everything, to transcend human limits just with his brain. But on the other side, there's this crippling existential fear, this deep, gnawing anxiety born from the spiritual chaos of the era he lived in.
And this, right here, is the key insight. That pride, it's not just simple arrogance. It's actually a defense mechanism. It's a shield he's built to protect himself from his own absolute terror of spiritual uncertainty. And that connection, that link between pride and fear, creates the perfect opening for a predator who's smart enough to praise the shield while promising to get rid of the terror behind it.
So, now that we've mapped out the target's vulnerabilities, we can really dig into the attack itself. Mephistopheles doesn't just show up with some crude, generic temptation. No, he deploys a totally bespoke strategy, what our sources call psychological surgery.
And this is the Predator's Gambit. It's a brilliant 2-pronged assault. But here's the genius of it. Both of these attack vectors are meticulously designed to feel like liberation, not a trap. He offers freedom from doubt and freedom from authority, and both paths lead straight to his ultimate goal, getting that pact signed.
Let's look at the first prong, the lure of Gnostic certainty. Now remember, this guy is living in an age of crippling doubt. So the predator offers him a master key, a promise to unlock all the universe's forbidden secrets. This offer lands a direct hit on the scholar's intellectual pride and promises to finally end his anxiety.
But there's an insidious goal hiding behind this offer. The real purpose isn't to enlighten him. It's to engineer a complete spiritual collapse. The whole strategy is to get him to trade the humility of faith for the heresy of absolute knowing. It's a lure that's just too good to resist, but it comes with a hidden and totally ruinous cost.
And that brings us to the second prong of the attack, the illusion of unrestricted freedom. This one goes right for his existential fear, that deep feeling of being powerless against the massive institutions of his time. It promises total liberation, but as the sources make crystal clear, it's a self-destructive trap that doesn't lead to freedom at all. It leads to total servitude. So, with our target perfectly primed by this 2-pronged assault, we finally arrive at the central mechanism of his downfall, the pact. But again, we have to stop thinking of this as some kind of magic. It's much more clinical than that. It is a clear, cold, non-negotiable spiritual transaction.
This quote, I think, just perfectly captures the essence of what's happening. Mephistopheles isn't just a tempter, he's the ultimate cynical banker. The pact itself is best understood as a predatory high-interest loan that has been meticulously designed from the very beginning for a catastrophic default.
So let's actually break down the terms of this spiritual loan. The principle, what you get, is a finite period of gain, all that knowledge and freedom he craves. But the collateral, well, that's the complete and total surrender of his soul. You can see the fine print reveals a catastrophic imbalance of value. To sign a contract like this requires what the sources call a profound spiritual and financial illiteracy.
And once that contract is signed, that's it. The outcome is sealed.
This is no longer a game of chance or persuasion. The protagonist's fate is now guaranteed by a legally binding contractual obligation. The deal is done. Which brings us to the final engineered outcome. Because the pact is a transaction, a business deal, its conclusion was never in doubt. The entire process, from start to finish, was designed to end in only one specific way.
The debt has to be paid. The loan comes due. That finite period of gain runs out, and the result is the tragic foreclosure of a spiritual debt. The illusion of freedom is just ripped away, and it's replaced by an eternity of servitude.
And really, this is the core moral of the story, and it's not subtle about it. It's a profound allegory warning against unchecked pride and just failing to understand the true, catastrophic cost of temptation. It's a stark warning against trading something of eternal value for a temporary gain.
So let's bring it all together and go back to our framework. First, there was the man, a proud scholar whose very specific anxieties made him the perfect target. Second, the lure, a bespoke, custom-tailored offer that targeted his core flaw. And third, the cage, a transactional pact that weaponized his own choices to guarantee his fall. In the end, his own nature was the catalyst.
Which leaves us with one final, provocative question. We've deconstructed a historical case study, sure, but the pattern itself is absolutely timeless. A predator's offer is always designed to feel like liberation. So it's worth asking yourself, what's the fine print on the offers you accept?